celebrating. And this conversation is all about the masculine power of detachment in dating with women and also in life. This teaching can be applied to anywhere in your life. Because here's the thing, the more desperate you are, the more a woman is going to pull away, maybe even ghost you. That's not the most mature way to break it off, or she's going to, leave and break it off. So the moment you detach from outcome is actually the moment the attraction flips in your favor. And we're going to talk about it tonight. So if you're here, welcome. Drop your questions in the comments below. Drop your comments in the comments below and join in on the conversation, around why there's masculine power and detachment. What's up, Anderson? Welcome. Happy to have you here. So excited. Thanks for saying hello. And basically, one of the main points I want to make, which you may have heard me talk about if you've been to this channel before, if you haven't, then here it is. Needing equals pressure. When you constantly feel like you need something or someone, like you need to have a woman in your life, then that creates desperation. It's a very different energy from saying, like, I want a woman in my life. I like women. You know, I'm better when I have a good woman by my side and on my arm. That's a completely different energy and come from. Look how I even said it as opposed to like, I need a woman. I just need that, right? So that's coming from a lack mindset and maybe something that's creating a desperation in you because one, maybe women are a form of validation for you. Maybe they're a form of status. Maybe it's just they help to fill a void within you because you don't feel whole within yourself. So when you need anyone, it's scarcity, it's coming from lack, it's coming from fear. And masculine energy is grounded, and it's grounded in prosperity. So when you are grounded in your masculine energy, you're not desperate for anything, whether it's a business deal, opportunity, a promotion, a career move, your financial goal you want to hit, your physical goals that you want to hit, or women, or, dating them and whatever outcome you really want, right? You can have a goal set. What's up, Elizabeth? You can have a goal set, but that doesn't mean you have to be desperate to win her over. What's up, Rules? Happy, welcome, welcome, right? Because when you're needy and you're desperate, women feel that. And so they're either going to do one or two things. They're going to be like, he's going in the friend zone. He's too needy and desperate, and it's not the energy I want in a man, and she's going to leave. Or if she's manipulative, she's going to see what she can get out of you and how far you're going to go because you're so desperate. And then you're going to end up somewhere hurt and bitter and sad, blaming women for the fact that you came and chose to come into the situation with this type of energy, which is something that is learned. It was not something that was birthed within you. It was learned. Maybe it came from your childhood wound. Maybe your little boy wounds come up when you're in a dating situation or when you're in a relationship with a woman. It's fine. Hi, Howard. I actually don't have a GED. I am a college graduate. Not that that even matters right now because I'm not even building a career based on what I went to school around. So to answer your question, I do not have a GED. I'm an actual college graduate. I have a degree. What's up, Harmony? Thank you so much. Welcome. Thank you for the compliments. So happy to have you here on the conversation. So think back when you've been needy around anything that you really wanted and you wanted to create and you were attached to that outcome. And usually we get attached and we attach to one outcome. Like the situation, the outcome of it can't happen and the result can't happen on so many different paths. Life and dating is not linear. It's not a straight line. It's more like this, right? I always say that relationships aren't black and white. So even with the content I'm giving you, yes, I'm condensing it so that it can be deliverable, and it's to the point and it's focused and directed. But know within this, there's also going to be zigzags. Some things are going to come up with women maybe I haven't mentioned before in this direct example, or some things are going to come up with you around being attached to outcome that maybe I haven't thought about and brought to the forefront. So just because I'm saying needy equals pressure doesn't mean like it's set. It can equal something else for you. Like, neediness means, oh, I didn't get validated, or I didn't get the love wanted to receive from my mom when I was a child. So I'm looking at it, I'm trying to pull it out of the different women I'm trying to bring into my life and come into a romantic relationship with. So, you know, so oh, Howard has some, I guess. Howard, this your advice for women? Life is simple. Get an education, get a job, keep your legs together. Thanks, Howard, for chiming in on the conversation. This is not psychobabble. This is actually something have experienced, and I'm pulling from my own experiences and also working with men who were in this situation. So if you don't understand, maybe you can just be honest and be like, I don't understand. Can you break it down a little bit more simple? But it's not psychobabble at all. I'm not a therapist, so me saying the word needy and desperate, that's actually very simple English and words. So if you're not enjoying the conversation, you're welcome to depart as well. Maybe this channel and this content isn't for you. So you have to make that decision for yourself. What's up, Aaron? What's up, Top One? So happy to have you. Aaron, what is the meaning of life? We get to come to that in our own understanding of it, I think. Obviously, if you ask me or anybody else, they're going to have a different answer for you. So that's actually a great question for you to have self inquiry within yourself, which actually Aaron's question can like come back to the point of the conversation, how there's masculine power and detachment, right? If you're detached from like what life holds and what the meaning is it of, and you're just attached to like this one realization that you may have come to, or this one thought, and you're like, oh, life means that for me. Yes, but that doesn't mean that that's solid, right? Because one constant in life that I recognize, life is always changing. Just like dating can be, a constant evolution. Look how we date now and how we relate to each other, men and women, and platonically, and business. The world has changed, and how we relate to people and communicate with people has changed. So, what's up, Carson? How are you? Welcome. Welcome to the conversation. So, something to, right, settle in on if, you know, you hear me make this point about neediness, and needing equals pressure, and I want to speak to that because I really didn't speak to that example. What I mean by pressure is neediness can put unnecessary pressure on you to be so desperate for this one outcome. Like, say you get a chick's number, you call her or text her, she didn't pick up the phone, or you text her, she hasn't responded right back to you, or she didn't respond to you 2 days later, and you're brewing in like, oh God, did I get the right number? Does she not like me? Maybe she has a boyfriend, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying all men do this. More women probably do this than men. So, you know, but that's just a very simple example. You're putting unnecessary pressure on yourself instead of texting her or calling her or leaving a voice memo and trusting that she's going to get back to you. And if she doesn't, you don't even have to be attached to that outcome. You're good either way, and you continue on with your life. You continue talking to approaching more women, getting more numbers, putting yourself out there, especially if you're scared to talk to women in person. Continuing to do that so that it can be natural, so that your confidence can build, so that you can course correct and be like, oh, what's working, what's not, what are women attracted to me for, and what is repelling them. looking at it very uh without emotion, without any feeling, and just saying like, oh, if I do this, blah 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 blah. This I've said this before, and it made her, it made women smile and laugh. So it's just you don't have to put any pressure on yourself to to the outcome that you want, regardless if that's getting a woman's number or getting into bed with her and getting laid. I don't know. Trying to give you some examples you can relate to. So number two is detachment actually creates freedom. And I had a guy ask me, like, what's the sweet spot of detachment? And I think sometimes when people hear the word detachment, think it automatic, they may assume or may land on them, or their understanding of it they think it may mean, oh, that means I get to avoid her somehow, or I can be a dick and not care. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means like you're good either way. And whether you ask her for a number or you ask her out and she says yes or no, you're not going to crumble. Like life isn't over. And even if you're internalizing it as rejection, it doesn't mean anything about you. So it means like you're not, there can be freedom in that, opposite of creating unnecessary pressure on yourself. When you have pressure on yourself, there's tension that can be created in the body, not just energetically. You start to overthink, your thoughts go off into like crazy whatever that might not even be true, right? The ego is knocking and blowing up your spot of being at calm and at peace and being like, yo, I'm good either way. Even if she doesn't, she says no to this date, maybe we can reschedule, or maybe, it's just not our time, or she's not really serious about trying to date. And now I know her schedule's really busy, so I'm gonna move on. So it doesn't have to be this thing where it like creates you know what I heard a man say? Dating is hard, where it creates, things like that in your mind. Because it actually can be really simple and easy, and you can have fun and attract women in the process. But it's about you being in the process, in the present moment, and enjoying yourself versus being attached to the outcome of, you know, X, Y, and Z regarding women and in life. Aaron says, why are men so spiritually weak in the USA? Um, I don't want to generalize, but in my experience, from my observation, Aaron, of men in the US versus, I don't even want to say men in the US, it can be men in all different types of places, but I've traveled, I'm on my own spiritual path. I feel that they may not necessarily be weak, but maybe they're just not in your visual path right now. I don't think they're necessarily weak or they're not there. I think they may just be coming to the work in a different way, and very much at their own pace. Because a lot of when I've gone to a lot of spiritual retreats, there's always, or the like in some spiritual community, and we're all working towards the same goal or learning from the same teacher. There's always been a significant amount of women versus men, more women versus men. There was only one plant medicine ayahuasca ceremony that I sat in where it wasn't more men than women, but it was more equal. There were more men there than what I had seen previously. And that was back in 2019. And that alone told me the tides are turning on that. Men are like coming to this work in their own way, but they got to do it on their own time, right? And we may be judging that because like we're a few steps ahead of them on our journey, or we're in a different place in our journey than they might be. But so I'm seeing that, right? They're starting to come to it more, but maybe at a slower pace. And that's okay, right? I think even more now they're coming to it and realizing like just things aren't working when they aren't connected to spirit, which ideally is strengthening the connection and the wholeness within themselves. But Spiritually weak. I would say I don't want to blame it on external things, but I would say there is an agenda out there just in general to make men weak. And one of the ways is spiritually and physically, right? From the push of porn, the blow up of OnlyFans, the food industry and what they put out, especially the poisons in the US, because a lot of things and ingredients and fake ingredients that are legal and they let it go out in US food, it's not allowed and it's illegal to put it in food like overseas. So there's a lot of outside components and propaganda that's being pushed out to men so that they can be weak. Because when a man is weak, spiritually and beyond, he is easily controlled. You know, he will easily hear something and be like, "Oh, the government told me X, Y, and Z, and I'm gonna oblige," instead of being in discernment, questioning, sourcing his own masculine power. But I think that's some of the reason, right? Just from like entertainment, music, porn, the blow up of the internet and toxic stuff being pumped into that. Like, you know, that a big example people were talking about was what's put on TikTok in China and what's put on TikTok in the USA. And a lot of that in China is like to make the people that are watching it smarter because they know teenagers and children and people like of that nature are tuning in. And the TikTok here is like some of it, right? Some of the content that they let go out on there is like dumbing people down. So at the end of the day, it's all perspective. And I feel that if we don't judge those men who are weak, but we have compassion for them and trust that they are going to strengthen themselves in some way, shape, or form when it's time for them to do so, and they wake up to that and stop sleeping, then we just get to trust in that. And that's one reason why I put out the content I do, why I talk about masculinity, why I talk about harnessing your masculine energy, and why that's so important. The underlying reason of it, other than it brings you back to the connection with yourself as a man, it is going to strengthen our men individually and collectively as a whole. Because, you know, women and children, like, we need you guys. We need you to not need, we want you to be strong, and we want to support you in showing up in your strength, not just, you know, intellectually and mentally, but also physically and spiritually, emotionally as well. So the world is better when, you know, men are standing in their masculine power, because when they do that, they can't be controlled. So, and that comes back to the point I'm trying to make here. That's why there's power, masculine power, in you being, you know, detached, you being detached from the outcome, you going after your goals, knowing a direction, being clear and focused on that direction. And also, yes, wanting and having the goal, wanting to have the goal turn out, but not being attached to there's only one way I can get there. And the same thing goes for like dating and women. There's not only one way you're going to meet the woman of your dreams. There could be so many different ways how she like comes into your life. And the only thing I ask you and I want you to be aware of is you got to be ready. You can't be like filled with poison and distracted and have no purpose and doing all types of things, because that woman will and possibly may show up and you won't even be able to recognize her because you're so busy, like Aaron may have said, weak spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally. You're not working on yourself. You want to bury yourself in alcohol and porn and wasting time and being idle, whatever that is, right? And so this is really something to be aware of, right? And you may be so on automatic that you do it, you come home, watch Netflix, hang out on the couch, drink, get fat. You know, these can be they can stack up from small choices. Remember, choices and habits, we are habitual creatures. And when we constantly make choices and habits, we're mostly doing them on automatic in from the subconscious. The subconscious is running the show. So if you have shit back there that needs to be worked on, right? Then that means your trauma, your wounds are ideally running the show. And sometimes men will go to porn, drugs, alcohol, strip club, you name it, to suppress not having to face their shit, not wanting to face it, and thinking that, and I'm not judging it, that the drug, the OnlyFans, whatever, is the solution for you at that moment. But if you make a habit of it, it will do a disservice to you. I just watched a very good interview with a man who runs an OnlyFans management agency, and he don't only works with top models. So if you're not putting $1 million or more a year in his pocket, he not taking you as a client. So he is working with some top people on there. And one thing he said is that the customer base for the models that he's managing on OnlyFans, they look for a certain framework, the type of man that is going to continuously subscribe to his models' channels. And one dude who was not a millionaire, he gave an example, spent $45,000 in a matter of 90 days on one of his clients' channels. What is that telling you about where some of our men are going right now? And he gave the bullet points of the framework that they look for and market to as far as men. So it's mean you're not mentally stable, you're lonely, you're desperate. He was naming all of these. Like they have a customer avatar that they look for to market to, because he was like a big part of why some of the women are there making a killing hand over fist as far as money is marketing and promotion, and also constantly repurposing their content, not even having to make fresh content. Like they're repurposing something they made a year ago constantly, but marketing it to the men who are coming to these channels as something fresh and new, but it's the same shit you already saw. If that ain't genius, I don't know what is. But it's crazy because it's prying on men who aren't well, that are spending their money for that hit, that dose of intimacy, not feeling lonely, or whatever the fuck they're going through, as opposed to them spending money on therapy, plant medicine, something to make them level up and be better, and extract their wounds so that they won't have to spend money on that. And I'm not knocking it. Look, it's a place for it and it's here, but dude was clear that these men aren't right with their life that are subscribing to this. Well, as far as their customer avatar, I don't think he meant in general, but and he was also saying he wants to get out of the business because it's like playing on his conscience that he's right feeding the animal. So something to really think about. Thank you, Aaron, for asking that question, because it opened up a whole new right part of the conversation. I didn't know what that was going to happen before I came on here. Carson says she is actually spitting facts and I'm pleasantly surprised. Thank you. And I did a really good Instagram out live on this a few years ago around why the porn industry is $1 billion industry, right? And broke it down percentage and what like the US market is made. Obviously, there's not a lot of financial information you can get out of there because it's not public, right? I'm sure for a reason, but it's something to think about on what is hooking men in to make them spiritually weak. And not just spiritually, that wears on everything. If you're addicted to porn, I'm sure you're not going to the gym to work out and work on yourself and get better, right? Because this thing is feeding your attention and giving you a false sense of intimacy and hope or whatever it's doing for you, right? And also taking your money. So, Down syndrome, G just said, you look like a young Dave Chappelle. Interesting. Ironically, Down syndrome Jesus or Jesus, whatever you call yourself, me and Dave Chappelle went to the same high school. He's much older than me, so we definitely weren't in the same class. But yeah, I am from Maryland, but I went to school in Washington, D.C. And it's so funny you said that because he went to the same arts high school that I went to. So how funny is that? But back to the point at hand in a more directed way, right? What Aaron's talking about, I kind of try to state in the conversation in a more indirect way of, being detached from things, and look how many addictions men are addicted to. That ain't being detached at all. That's quite the opposite, right? Because when you have an addiction, you want that fix, you need it to calm down or suppress whatever is coming up that you actually don't want to face. And it will behoove men and really support them to face that trauma, that darkness, that shadow. And it's not comfortable, because I've done a lot of that work myself. It ain't comfortable whether you doing it in therapy or doing mushrooms, right? In a ceremony where it's, with a facilitator. I'm not saying recreationally. It ain't gonna be comfortable, because shit gonna come up, but you will be in a place more that's leading you to freedom. And that was one of the points I just made. Freedom detachment creates freedom. And the last point I want to make, because I don't want to keep you all here all night unless you want to stay with me. I love this work, so I don't mind. Is that, detachment is having a prosperity mindset. When you have a prosperity mindset, you know that opportunities and women are always available. They're always an option. They're always a way to bring them into your life, right? Not being attached to outcome or how it's going to happen and materialize, but knowing that there's plenty of women out there for me to like approach and talk to and date and have a relationship in, where I will meet the woman of my dreams. And, you know, women respect men who have that mindset. And also, when you get into something with a woman and you're like, this isn't healthy for me, this is toxic, or there's some things that you don't like that she's constantly doing that's becoming a pattern, and maybe you talk to her about it, you set a boundary, you had healthy communication, healthy mature communication with her, and shit's still coming up, and it's just you're like, nah. And you're okay with walking away, and you actually do it, or in your mind, like, I can walk away from this and I'm good. Women respect that. Women respect men who are willing to walk away, right, out of a relationship with them, because it shows an amount of self love and self care you have for yourself and your own well being, right? And I'm not saying be a dick and don't, if you're in a relationship and something comes up, maybe you can just set a boundary, express it, don't shut down, communicate, course correct in real time, talk about it, right? I'm not saying a dude that just blows off and like ghosts. That's an immature way to like leave anything. But I'm saying, like, you've had conversations, there's nothing materializing out of it, where like it can come to a different point and help to grow and evolve your relationship with this woman. And so you're like, I'm good with walking away. That is having a prosperity mindset. And maybe you walking away is the best thing for both of you, where that will forward your growth. You always hear me say relationships are the playground for growth and expansion. And I wholeheartedly believe that, and not just romantic relationship, friendships, business relationships. You learn so much in relationship. They're simple, not always easy, but we're meant to be in a tribe, in a relationship. We are those type of creatures. What's up, Jordan? Welcome. I don't believe in all that mindset stuff. Well, look, you're entitled to your opinion, you know? So, welcome to the conversation anyway. I'm glad that you put up a opposing opinion. And if you don't believe in it, well, then, I don't know what to tell you. I've done a lot of things around mindset and I know it works. And it's not just about mindset, it's actually connecting, having that mindset, and then taking action on implementing that so that change can really happen. I don't think it's just, you know, having that one thing. But, maybe, Jordan, you want to ask yourself, and are there some things where, like, I did tend to believe that something was going to happen and it didn't? You don't think your mindset had any influence over that outcome? Something to think about, because we are vibrational beings. So something to think about. Not necessarily asking you to agree. I'm glad you actually came here to listen and are just, stating your opinion, your opposing opinion. Carson says, what do you think about the feminist propaganda and its beneficial to society? Ooh, Carson, that's a good question. There's two women I talk about this with all the time. They're like my sisters, and we're like in this accountability group together around our businesses. But we bring up this point a lot, um, especially when we're talking about like men and men's issues and things. And I'm still doing research around feminism in general and the feminist movement. Um, but in my experience of the observation of it and the words that are coming out of women's mouth around it, it it feels to me and it sounds very extreme to the point where it's leading women to hate men and be like, we're better off without them in their life in our life. And that's okay if that's what you want, right? I'm not saying these women are idiots. I'm not saying anything, but what I'm saying is our society would not I don't know, our society I don't feel like our society would function in a harmonic way without men, because you all do a lot bring a lot of things to the world that we either don't want to do, or and you know like being in construction. I don't think there's a lot of women being in construction, and something I said is like workers are important here, right? If you want to talk about just the 3D, right, where like buildings are important here. Creating an infrastructure in a city or a state is important here. So what would happen if none of us wanted anything to do with men and they just left? Like, so I think about things like this when I hear feminists speak, and I just feel like the extreme message and propaganda that's being put out there, from my experience of it, I'm not saying this is what's happening. Maybe they have a whole other intention that I don't know about, or it's just not, I'm not getting. But how it's coming into my brain and how I'm receiving and digesting the message is that they are now, the extreme of it is they are now leading women to hate men, to despise them, and leading them to be like, we don't want y'all. You have no place here. You don't need to be in our lives at all. And we're good. And I said, if that's what they want, I'm not knocking it. But I just feel like that's not the best message to, because it creates separation. Let's take men and women out of it. It just creates separation between humanity. And the point of my channel and my content is to bring men to empower themselves and back to a relationship with themselves, so that they know and can learn a more effective and healthier way to be in relationship with women, which creates connection, right? Opposite of separation, right? If we're constantly at each other's throats and men are X, Y, and Z and women suck and are X, Y, and Z, we're constantly opening the gap to more separation between us. Then if that happens, our population is not going to grow. Children are not going to happen, I guess, unless, everybody freezes their eggs or gets artificially, whatever. But who wants to experience that? I want a child to like have a father that he knows. like, so that is my very small, minute take on it, Carson. I feel that the feminist movement was born out of something that was a bit more pure and wanting like women to be upwardly mobile and things like that. But like I said, I'm still doing research on it for myself. Like for instance, the show The View. I can't stand that show. I feel like that whole panel is like grouchy, bitter, resenting feminist. But I'm making a very quick observation from the I don't watch the show, from the snippets I've seen on social media about the shit that comes out their mouth, excuse my language, and how they talk about men and things in general. So that's a very real life definition of how like I have seen the extreme propaganda message of feminists come out through that show and through the panelists on that show. But like I said, I'm making a very quick generalization and opinion, being that I don't watch that show. I watched it before when Barbara Walters was on it, and you know, I didn't. I kind of like, it was just a phase. But now those women seem so grouchy and bitter and gossipy and toxic that I'm like, I can't even watch 5 seconds of this. Like, I've watched it on people's clips because they're trying to make a point around something that somebody might have said on there, and then they bring it back to, around to their point. But even that alone, I'm just like, these women are delusional and insane. Right? You know? But I also have compassion for them because they're on their journey. So if that's how they want to show up and express themselves, they can. And you know, I don't have to listen to it. So what do you think about, okay, so that's to answer your question, Carson. What is beauty meant to you? In a nutshell, Amalu, beauty is inside out to me. I think you can see a beautiful woman walking down the street, and that doesn't necessarily mean her aesthetic is just beautiful, right? Or you can interact with a woman and you're like, there's something fucking like so beautiful about her. It's not necessarily always her looks, it's her energy. It's her feminine energy that she's bringing forth when she's in conversation with you and you're in her presence. So that's how I really look at beauty, like an energy. It's a presence, it's an embodiment. Um, and it's not just about aesthetic and looks, although that adds to it, of course. Carson said, we need y'all and y'all need us, is basically what you're saying, which is a correct point of view. I mean, it's my point of view. I'm not saying it's the right point of view. I'm just saying at the end of the day, the extreme part of that movement, from what I have observed and listened to and taken in and have conversations with other women, it's creating separation. Bottom line, it's creating separation. And so when messages are doing that, coming from any movement or anybody, I always question it and look at it, and also look at like, what's the real intention behind this? And where is it leading this group of people that's feeding into this message and propaganda? So I always look at things like that, and also like, who's leading it now, and what is their energy about, you know? And not to judge, just to look at it from a more observant point of view. So to bring it back around, thank you for asking that question. To, you know, bring it back around, even gentlemen, if you have some views on that, you can still have a prosperity mindset around it. Like, all women aren't like that, and I know that. So they can have their little movement. It's fine. They can believe what they want to believe. Let them be on their own journey. But know that all women aren't like that, you know? Aren't, especially the extreme part of it. I mean, I say the same thing about the red pill movement. Where are they leading men? The extreme, from what I observed and researched, the extreme part of that movement is it's leading men to be by themselves, resenting women and bitter, and having this unrealistic, very skewed idea about what role a woman plays in a relationship, and what role women are supposed to play here on this earth. So, which it's been from the red pill movement to the black pill movement. It's very toxic. And I'm actually going to do a long form video around, when you watch that type of content, please have discernment around what they're saying. Because I've even watched some videos where they're telling men not to compliment women, and that's what women want, and that's what you women are attracted. No, women who care usually about their appearance, they want compliments, and it doesn't even have to come for an ego. They appreciate when a man can genuinely give them a compliment, right? Regardless what it's about. It doesn't even have to be about their looks. It can be something about their intellect, the way they speak, the way they articulate. It can be anything. Women like compliments. Like, let's keep it real. If you want to bear it down, bare bones, women like compliments. Why would you make a video and that be one of the points you're telling men not to compliment women? Like, that's such a sissy move. Like, are you fucking kidding me? But I looked at it and I laughed, because I'm like, okay, where is this leading men, and why would they believe this and be and think like this is going to like attract them. If anything, that's a repellent. But it's okay. He out there putting out that they out there putting out that type of content. So I always say, even with myself, have discernment about what people are saying online. They're not your God. They're not your guru. They don't know everything about relationships and dating. I don't care if it's coming from a man or a woman or a seahorse. Have discernment. And I feel like that's a way to exercise your masculine energy. Don't be naive. Have discernment about what people are saying and see what comes up for you and how it lands on you, and filter out what makes sense for you or not, and then apply it or not, or take it in or go to the next video. But that's a great question, Carson, so thanks for answering it, and thank you all for being in the conversation tonight. And gentlemen, if you even if you don't want to comment in the comments below, it'd be nice, because like I said, this is a group community, right? Talk and conversation. It's never about you just listening to me. It's about us coming into conversation together. Amalou says the problem that I face is I focus on purpose and didn't meet any women. Even if I meet someone, there are many guys who do spend more time and energy to get her. Well, that's not okay. I actually don't want to belittle, like make that thing small. That's a problem, but know that it can also, there's a solution to it, right? So I focused on purpose and didn't meet any women. Look, life is about seasons. Maybe you were in a season where I want to focus on my purpose so that I can hit a goal or grow in the process, or like see the outcome materialize. So I'm putting dating on the back burner right now. And even if you didn't make that agreement with yourself where it was like conscious, it was obviously unconscious through your actions. Meeting and dating women was not a priority for you in that moment, right? So that's fine. Maybe you're coming into a new season of your purpose and you're like, okay, I've planted the seeds. I'm a farmer. I've watered it a lot. It's starting to grow. And I'm in a season where I want to start to meet women again. Don't worry about what other guys are doing. Who the fuck cares? Focus on yourself and how you want to show up with dating women and attracting them. So, yeah, women love energy and time. They want men to make the effort. So, really think about if you want to give the energy and time right now to attract women, to date a woman so that you can get into a relationship with one. But yes, women want time and energy. They want you to make the effort. So if you're not going to do that, maybe it's still not a big enough of a pain point or a problem where you want to change and create another, like do something else to get a different result and a solution. I'm just being real with you. So that's what I say to that. Don't worry about what other guys are doing. That's having a lack scarcity mindset. You focus on what you're doing and how you want to show up with women. That's a prosperity mindset. And wherever the bottleneck is or the problem is, where can you change your actions and whatever to get a different result? And maybe that has to be, well, I got to put some more time and energy when I'm out, to meet a woman so that I can really start dating again and see what this is all about. But it does require time and energy. It's just like anything else in life, to answer your question. And I think that's a problem that can be easily corrected if you wanted it to be. But you got to ask yourself, how much do I really want it? Because if you don't and you're going to half ass it, I would say don't bother then. Right? Get real with yourself first and then be like, okay, I'm ready to put myself out there and like get at it, you know? And then do it and see what happens. But you want to change that, and it starts with changing your mindset around it first and foremost, and then implementing something to fix that problem, and you can do it. You can. I believe in you. Um Khalil Lee says, how old are you and what's your sign? I asked because you remind me of my mom when you articulate, that's all. That's so funny. I don't know if that should be a compliment or I should be offended, but I'm joking. But my sign is I'm a Sagittarius. I'm a fire sign, very fiery. Um, but that doesn't mean, right, that's the whole of me. Because I said that when we were talking about astrology the other day when a guy asked me, he was a Cancer, and he was like, "What does that say about me?" And I'm like, "Look, I'm gonna break it down and be real to you, especially if you're not really into astrology. The sun sign, right, that matches up with your birth date or whatever, the sun sign, it's only a little small minute part of you or how your personality and how you do things can be. It's really about looking at your whole birth chart. So me telling you I'm a Sagittarius honestly means nothing if you haven't seen my whole birth chart. And even the signs in that chart and things like move all the time depending on what year it is and where you are, you know. So just something to school y'all on if fellas you don't know that. And like I said, if you met a woman who's into astrology and she is so attached to you having to be and turn out and do certain things because it's based off of your sign, no. And she's very rigid around that, and it's causing some type of friction and tension that maybe you've addressed already, or you just don't want to be bothered with it because you're like, this is ridiculous, this doesn't define me as a man, and she's being so attached to it, then cut your losses right now. So something to be aware of, right? I'm not attached to that. I've studied astrology. I've gotten my birth chart done. I'll probably get it done again, but it's not something that I'm so attached to where I'm like, oh, I would never date a Pisces man. I don't care. Right? That's only saying so much about you. I'm looking at your character, your personality, how you treat me, things like that. Khalil says, thanks for responding. It's a compliment. Oh, thank you, Khalil. So happy to have you. So happy to have you drop into the live tonight and be in the conversation and ask questions and make comments. So awesome to have you here. Welcome to the channel if you haven't been. Amalu says, what are the qualities of high value women? I usually like to say healthy, feminine women. I don't like putting the word high value on anything because I feel like I don't know, it makes us, I don't know, I feel like I know that word is used a lot on the internet and buzzwords, and it's a good keyword for YouTube or whatever, but it makes me feel like we're cattle, right? And there's different values on us when it's not like that. We're just people on our own journeys and in different levels of consciousness, which doesn't mean it's good or bad. So I'm Lou, to answer your question. I'm glad you asked it like that. Then obviously, like, people reading the chat will like instantly understand what you're asking, right? Instead of saying, well, what's a woman of, high level of consciousness like? Right. They may not land. But to answer your question, a healthy feminine women, the qualities, and I'm basing this from myself, right? And what I observe, or women that I've met, or it's my friends who are like really feminine. I will, I'm listing it based off of that, but it can be so much more. Like, I just want to let you know that because women are complex and we have a lot to us, which can be really beautiful. But in my experience and how I show up in that is like the quality of feminine women are, they can be a little mysterious, very supportive, warm, nurturing. They definitely have standards. They definitely have their own set of boundaries that they're serious about, whether it's from like their bedtime and you being respectful of that and, not expecting them to pick up the phone or text you back, at a certain time, because they know that the life that they want to create. And so they're going to respect their bedtime, possibly for their own beauty regiment. And also because, they are clear about the life they want to create and, you know, the gentleman that they want to come into their lives. So, I would say like look for things like that. Um, get a sense of what her values, morals, her core values and morals are and standards. I don't want to put these women into a box, But I will know they also have no problem with walking away from you if you aren't treating them well, if you aren't respectful, if you are not, standing in your own masculine energy and power with them, if you're not on purpose, um, if you're not helping to make their life easier, and I realized this when I was getting ready for this talk. We sometimes can be very selfish going into relationship or building a connection with someone, because our ego can instantly go to, what can I get out of this situation, what can I get from this person, what can I get out of this person? And then it ends up making relationships and relating to people very transactional, as opposed to, how can I show up for this person and what can I give in this moment with them, in this relationship, in, on this date when we go out? What can I give? How can I serve? And it doesn't mean you're letting somebody overstep your boundaries or you over giving to have that turnout. One great thing I say about having a feminine woman and going out with her and being in her presence, that's like her giving a lot already, because femininity can change the energy in a room, or it can help you to feel more comfortable, to trust more, to let your guard down, So um those are the things that you may want to look for. If I answered your question, usually she takes care of herself, not just inner work, but also outer. um she's not perfect, but she's definitely going to care about her appearance. She's a quality feminine woman, and that's something that she enjoys, right? It's a way. Women are very expressive and very creative, so it's a way that she can, express herself, through being creative with her look, and looking good, for herself, and being making sure that her self-care is at the top of her priorities and how she expresses herself and lives her life. Lou says, what about spending money on her in the beginning? I'm so happy you asked this, because I actually, somebody who was mentoring me yesterday around the content I put out for men, right, in my channel, gave me a new idea. I've actually talked about this in shorts, as far as like taking women out and how you can be creative with dates, when it comes to women, especially when it's hot outside, because the world is your oyster. Or if you live in a place where you like have a beach, or it's warmer, you can do so many things, from like taking her out on a picnic, right? And it doesn't have to break the bank, to like, if she's athletic, asking her, does she want to go for a bike ride or rollerblading, or being creative, going to an amusement park, a water park, something fun like that. But maybe even asking her what type of books she likes to read, and you two like or you plan a date out in the park, where you bring some snacks, you bring some drinks, and y'all pick books that y'all reading, and you read and you talk about it, and you connect with her in conversation, and it gets really intimate. And then, one idea I gave men, and then, especially if this is like in the beginning, where it's like a first, second, maybe even third date, you decide you want to spend more time with her, you have a plan in your back pocket, like, yo, if we connect, women like to eat, I'm gonna offer to, like, can we continue, and I'll, make sure I feed her, like, take her out to lunch or to dinner, right? um so you can be creative as far as what you spend money on, and how you spend money on her, and the dates. But I would definitely say, don't be cheap, be realistic. Women don't like cheap men. And I don't mean like, just like, cheap comes off as very selfish, and it comes off as like, not what how do I, like I said, how do I get to serve? What How can I serve this relationship, or this outing, this date, instead of what can I get out of it? So to answer your question, obviously I'm not in your pockets. I don't know your budget. You got to determine that as a man. I know having finances correct and on point is very important to men. and having financial goals and things. So, look at all that and determine how much money you want to allocate to that area when you're in a relationship with a woman, and also when you're out there dating, because, men, it costs money. I get it. So, but there's ways you can be creative and very thoughtful when it comes to taking women out on dates. Like I said, I gave an example. One guy knew that I was very athletic and into, working out and health and movement and things. And our first date, he took me like to an indoor rock climbing place. And I couldn't have been so impressed. I was like so happy he did that. It was like that, and that was our first date. Granted, we never went far more after that, but it's like fine. But I was so impressed because I was just like, dude, he's listening and he got creative. No one's ever took me rock climbing before. I'd never done it. Something I always wanted to do. And it was something that was right up my alley of interest. So, you can get creative, find out what she likes, and then, figure it out from there. Like, you can get creative and, be responsible for yourself. Don't go broke trying to date a woman and be in a relationship with the woman. Or, if you got a woman of a certain caliber and quality, that can actually inspire a man to go after his purpose even bigger, to expand, to generate more income. So, there's so many ways to execute this and think about it, Amalu, but thank you for asking that question, because I know it's in the back of a lot of men's minds, and it's a concern, and it's also something to be conscious of, especially if you have financial goals. You don't want to have like somebody draining your bank account, or you draining your bank account, right, for the sake of like keeping somebody. So you want to be strategic, you want to plan, you want to be realistic, and you want to respect your money goals, along with, still having the prosperity and generous mindset. So thank you for asking that. Thank you so much for everybody, coming. And to the men out there, you don't have to drop it in the chat, but you can if you want. Be honest. How many of you have had women pull away, not want to talk to you, or because you were too much, or you came on too strong, or there was that desperate, needy energy coming from, possibly your wounded little boy, or being desperate from the outcome, for the outcome with a woman in dating and in life. Drop a yes in the chat if you've experienced this in some way, or think about it in your own way. If you don't want to engage in the chat, it's fine. But this is what I help men with, in the masculine confidence audit, which is basically a one-on-one coaching session with me. And you give me 60 minutes of your time, and we unblock and uncover some things, and then I help you shift fast out of whatever blocking you, and you leave with a plan so that you can implement right away. And that starts to not only like change your mindset, it's changing everything inside of you, because then you can take action on some things maybe you've never done before with women, or from your approaches, or to how you're navigating in a relationship with a woman, if you are. So that's available for you. I'm going to drop the link in the description, and you can click on that if you want to work with me on a deeper level, not just be here in the YouTube live. And I'm so happy that you are. And Amalu says, what about height? Many women say that height matters a lot. Amalu, if you treating a woman like a queen, nobody being attached to that. I've dated, I'm only like 5'4", right? Barely 5'5", if that. I may look tall. A lot of people think I'm taller than I am just because of how I show up on screen, on camera, right? But I'm not tall. And I've dated a guy who was damn near almost exactly my same height. And I met him online, so I wasn't really sure. And then I saw him and I was like, oh God, I really like tall men. And then that whole thing flew out the window, because I liked him and we had so much fun together, and he treated me well, and I met his family, and that went out the window. So if a woman really is into you, that whole thing that's on her checklist as far as height, that's gonna go out the window, babe. And that's how you know a woman's really likes you. If she's hung up on that, well, then she not liking you and she's just basing it all on that. And that's fine. Maybe she'll, meet a man who's whatever height that she requires and that she wants. There's nothing wrong with that. People can have things that turn them on and that they like. The thing I find so interesting when I observe someone who's so attached to that, right? We're talking about detachment, who's so attached to that they, one, close the pool off of great men they could be dating and exposed to because dude is 5'8" and she wants somebody who's really 6'3". But dude that's 5'8" could hit all the other qualities that she's really looking for in a man, and the dude that's 6'3" barely has any of those other than he looks good and he's tall. So a woman that really likes you is not going to care about that. I guarantee you. Why you think you see people on the street that's like the man don't look that hot and the woman is like gorgeous, right? So something to ruminate on and think about that. I think it's bullshit when a woman is attached to that personally, and that's like a deal breaker for them. But on the other hand, if that's what she wants to do, that's fine. Just know that if that's something that is gonna bother you, know that then that's not the woman for you. If you took her out or you end up talking to her and she's like, you have to be 6'1" or more or taller to date me. Okay, well, I'm not the man for you because I'm 5'11". So like I said, be okay with walking away from that. If she's so attached to that, it's okay. There's plenty of other women out there who won't give two fucks about that, and will possibly be the woman of your dreams. So that's my take on it. You may ask another woman and she feels completely different, but I'm telling you, I met somebody online who I dated for a while, and he was damn near my height. I barely wore heels around him, but we did a lot of things that were like athletic and going to the beach, so it wasn't a requirement for me to wear heels. But one time we went out somewhere really nice for his birthday, and I had on heels, and I was a little bit taller than him. And I noticed it, like it came up, but it wasn't like oh my God, this is like a big deal. I was like, this is kind of funny. And we went on about our day and it was fine, right? So thank you for asking that question. And like I said, you can ask another woman, they may have a completely different answer for you. So I'm just saying, that's my 2 cents about it. Anyway, y'all, I'm going to be out. I'll be back here soon. If I don't see you on another live, I see you in another video. Thank you so much for chiming in. Can you tell what type of questions to ask for to understand their values? I'm actually going to make a video on that, Amalu. So I'm not going to completely answer you here, but like I say, I'll give you the well-rounded things you want to ask them, like that has to do with like their core values, their standards, their morals. Like it can be something as simple as like, well, I'm in New York, so people can smoke weed out here. What is your stance on like marijuana becoming legal and where you live? That can tell you so much about a person. Ask a woman, what do you want in life? What do you want in a relationship? What qualities do you look for in a man? If there's 3 to 5 places you've always wanted to travel that you haven't been to yet, what would those places be? Things like that. Especially, what do you want in life? Because usually people don't know what they want. So that'll tell you a lot about a person. I don't know. You can ask her something funny. If you had an opportunity to rob a bank, would you do it? Would you do it, and why? Show you what her morals are right now. Or you can add it, if you had an opportunity to rob your bank because you had 3 children and you knew this was one of the main options to be able to feed them, would you rob that bank? Right? You can ask stuff like that, right? Just make sure it's not the typical things. Oh, like, what do you do? Like, how old are you? Like, not, you're not on an interview with her. That will instantly turn a woman off, and she will dry up right away, right? As soon as you ask that. Instead of asking her what she does, what are your passions in life? What do you love about your career or your business, if she happens to own a business? My dog is crying, y'all. I gotta go because he's probably making noise and you can hear it. And I think he has to go to the bathroom. So, but things like that, don't let it be dry. Let it be creative, think on your feet. And I am gonna make a video about that because another guy did ask me to. So, but ask the deeper questions of things that you know would extract answers you want to know about a person, or that's gonna tell you the type of woman that she is in some way, shape, or form, you know? So you can get creative. The world is your oyster. There's so many questions out there. The only thing I will say, don't try to race to like sexual questions, because then she'll instantly put up her guard and be like, does this dude want to just sleep with me? And this is inappropriate at this time of where we are, at the stage of where we are. So don't be fast to race to like, send me pictures of you. If she's a woman with standards, she's probably not going to do that because she's going to assume you want to jack off to it. So or race to like get to some highly sexual like questions. Don't race to that. Like really take some time to get to know her and be genuine. And with that, I don't think you can go wrong, right? So I hope that gives you some, insight to work with. But, bring your flavor and your energy to it. Like I said, I don't give cookie cutter like guidance and advice to men, because I don't want it to be like, oh, here, follow these 5 things, you're instantly going to get the woman of your dreams. No, you got to bring your own energy to it, because you might do those 5 things and not get the result that you want. And Larry over here will do those 5 things and it'll instantly work. But he brought his own energy to it, So I don't want to, like say these 10 questions are going to get you the exact answers you want. Women are very complex, and relationships and conversations can go so many different ways. But those are some things you can start off with, and then, think about. And I feel like if you're having a good time with a woman, and the answers and the conversation are flowing, you're naturally going to think of some good questions on the spot as you continue to enjoy the time with her, and the conversation is flowing and it's fluid naturally. That's instantly going to happen. So trust in that, right? Have a prosperity mindset around that. And with that, I'm going to help my little doggy here. I loved hanging out with you guys and being in conversation. Schedule a call with me for the masculine confidence audit if you're interested. The description and the link will be in the description below, and the replay once I post this. I'll see you soon, or the next video. Ciao. You're welcome, Amalu. Thank you for hanging out and asking questions. Ciao, ciao.